or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this December 31st, on this Tuesday, late afternoon. The Montreal Canadiens, minutes ago, defeated the Vegas Golden Knights in Vegas. The Canadiens were down by a score of 2-0. They rally back. They win this game by a score of 3-2. In the last three games, make that 2 game-winning goals for Kirby Dach, who scored 3 goals in the last 3 games. On Saturday, the Canadiens were in Florida, and they won by a score of 4-0. On Sunday, the Canadiens were in Tampa, and they won by a score of 5-2. And today, the Canadiens were in Vegas, and once again, they won by a score of 3-2. In those 3 games, 12 goals for, only 4 against. How many of you thought that was going to happen? How many of you thought the Montreal Canadiens were going to sweep their last 3 road games, their 3 road games right after Christmas? Wow. The Montreal Canadiens in the month of December compiled a record of 9 wins and 5 losses. That's a winning percentage of .643. We talked about what it would take for the Montreal Canadiens to actually make the playoffs, and it was about a winning percentage of .630 to .640, .643 in the month of December. Can they keep this up after they beat Florida on Saturday? A lot of people said, well, let me see them do it again on Sunday in Tampa. After they beat Tampa, they said, well, let me see them do it again in Vegas, and they did. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. They are a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. They are a top-flight employer as far as transport is concerned in Canada. Just check out Forbes, and they'll tell you that. Also brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager. Refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the chilly winter days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. And tonight at Playground, ring in 2025 with glitter, groove, and glam at Playground's New Year's Eve party. Get your party bracelet and access all the excitement across every floor starting at 5 p.m. and already started. Bracelets are required for entry. For just $20, you'll receive $20 in free play and a glass of Prosecco to toast the new year. Bracelets are also required for poker action on the 3rd floor. Get ready for an unforgettable night of music, dancing, and exclusive gaming fun. Celebrated style only at Playground. And all of us who are watching right now, we want to celebrate our New Year's Eve in style. And you know, we'll watch the Canada game at the World Juniors a little bit later on tonight. But at around 10 o'clock tonight, let's face it, we're going to be partying with our friends and family and our loved ones. And the Sick Podcast usually goes weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern. But tonight we said, you know what? We're going to do a special time. As soon as the hockey game is over, we're going to come on. And that's where we are. We're live on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. It's absolutely free. We're live on Facebook. We are live on Twitter. And, of course, you'll be able to listen to us on all social media platforms. Now it's time for the McGuire Report.
The McGuire Report. Presented by Vago Italian.
And yes, it is presented by Vago Italian. Restaurant Vago on Green Avenue, corner de Maisonneuve. They combined old world classics and new Italian dishes for over 23 years. Private dining rooms for any occasion, open Monday to Saturday evenings, and lunch from Tuesday to Friday, located at 1336 Green Avenue in Westmount. For reservations, call 514-846-1414. Pierre McGuire, I know that 1 game doesn't make a season. I know that 2 don't either, and I know that 3 don't either. But please allow me to be pretty excited today.
Yeah, you should be. Everybody should be. That was pretty spectacular when you consider the way the team started, Tony. When you look at the way the team finished, Most of it was in lockdown after they got, obviously, the great goal by Kirby Dach to put them ahead 3-2. But to me, the telltale sign was the reaction after Cole Caulfield scored his 100th career goal as a member of the Montreal Canadiens, and the play that set it up. Slafkovsky on the boards, that's his identity. Suzuki with the great cross-ice feed. And then Cole Caulfield, the right-hand shot on the left-hand side of the ice with the one-timer. Just look at that tape, and then go watch the reaction on the bench. That set it up. Now, I know that Vegas scored with no time left on the clock at the end of the second period. That would have changed the whole dynamic of the game. I get it. But there was no time left on the clock. That whole Caulfield goal set the stage for what we saw in the third period. It was spectacular, but the biggest thing I can say is Sam Montembeault gives them a chance to win that game.
Yes.
And that's all you can ask your goaltender to do on the road, and he did it.
And he obviously wanted to win his battle versus Adin Hill, right? You know, it's funny because this road trip coincided with a couple of players wanting to prove something. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but knowing Nick Suzuki and the competitor that he is, it's only human nature that he wanted to play a fantastic game in Tampa against Cirelli, against Hagel, against all those guys, and in front of John Cooper, who's going to coach the Team Canada team at the Four Nations tournament. And, you know, if you're Sam Montembeault, you want to win your battles versus Adin Hill. Pierre, there's so much I loved about this win tonight. You know, a buddy said to me, actually, I'll tell you, it was Chris Nyland. Chris Nyland, we went out for supper the other night, and he said to me, he says, Tony, that night in Florida versus the Panthers, he said, that was the most impressive win of the season. And he was probably right. But there's so much I loved about this game tonight, Pierre, and I'm going to tell you why. Arguably the best team in hockey, the Vegas Golden Knights, the team with the best winning percentage in hockey going into the game, the team that was the hottest team in hockey, having won 6 games in a row, a team that is very big and very heavy, and those are the teams that give the Montreal Canadiens problems. Mind you, Florida is very big and heavy too. Playing 3 games in 3.5 days. Pierre, can you begin to tell us how difficult that is? The Canadiens were in Florida on Saturday at 1 p.m. So after the Christmas break, they traveled to Florida. They play there on Saturday at 1 p.m. After the game, they leave Florida to go to Tampa. It's not a lot of travel. I get it. But they play Tampa on Sunday at 5 p.m. And then they play Vegas on Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's 3 games in what? That's not a very long period of time.
No. And it's time zone travel too that you're not taking into account either. So, yeah, no, it says a lot about the courage of the team. It says a lot about Sam Montembeault back-to-back wins in Tampa and obviously in Vegas this afternoon / evening for us on the East Coast. What is impressive to me, though, you're down 2-0. It doesn't look good. You know it. I know it. Most of the fans know it. They had 11 shots probably through most of the first 40 minutes of the game. And then all of a sudden, Slafkovsky forces a turnover. Suzuki makes the pass. Caulfield makes the finish. It's 2-1. The team erupts. They feel good about themselves. But the biggest reason why, Tony, Montembeault in the second period gave them a fighting chance to stay in the game. He gave them a fight, and that's all you want. That's all you can ask for. And so they start to believe. And then all of a sudden, they get the break at the end of the second period when the goal's disallowed because the time did run out on the clock. Yeah. And they take advantage of their break. You have to do that. If they don't take advantage of their break, then it doesn't matter. But they did.
And you're right, Pierre. I mean, I don't think too many people gave the Canadiens a chance when they were down by a score of 2-0, because to add to that, once again, everyone knows the Canadiens were playing 3 games in 3.5 days with travel to Florida, to Tampa, to Vegas, time zone travel, like you just talked about, and all that stuff. And so that was really, really impressive. But there were a lot of things that were impressive. You talked about Montembeault. And Montembeault, everyone was probably asking for too much at the beginning of the season, considering that the Canadiens were young on the fence. The Canadiens were having a hard time with the hybrid defense. The Canadiens were not getting good performances out of Kirby Dach. The Canadiens were not getting good performances out of their second line. The Canadiens were getting inconsistent play out of their forwards. The Canadiens did not have Patrick Laine for the most part. I mean, he joined the team in early December in the second game in December versus the New York Islanders. There was a lot of pressure on Montembeault. He wasn't being pushed by Caden Primo because, unfortunately, Caden wasn't doing the job. I find that the way they've been playing now lately, in the month of December, 9 wins and 5 losses, he doesn't have to steal games. He still does have to make the big save at the right time, or maybe 2 big saves. Like he made 3 big saves in the last 30 seconds.
Well, one in particular. Oh,
Yeah.
man, one was really good.
I got to give you a lot of credit. They lost the game. I know you're going to remember this in the middle of December versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were down 3-2 going into period number 3. They gave up 6 unanswered goals. I obliterated them in the post-game show because they had no idea if they were coming or going. And quite frankly, I thought the team gave up that night and they threw in the towel. We talked about the schedule for the rest of the month of December, and I think there was only going to be 1 game left at home or 2 games left at home the rest of December. And the rest were road games. And you said to me, the best thing that can happen to this team is that they're going to go on the road. And I was thinking to myself, and I was saying, geez, I don't know. I don't have the stats in front of me, but historically speaking, they lose a lot of those games, I think, when they're on the road around Christmas time. You were right, Pierre. How did you know that the best thing they needed was to get on the road?
Because they didn't need to hear all the drama at home. They needed to get on the road as a group, stick together, build your plan, listen to the coaches. It's us against them mentality. And it's easier at the Christmas holiday season, the Hanukkah holiday season, and the New Year's holiday season to be on the road than it is to be at home. You don't have to entertain people when you're on the road. You just got to take care of business. When you're home, you got a lot more demands. That's just human life. And so this has been going on for ages and ages in the NHL. I know a lot of teams try to set their schedule up. And look at forever, Tony, you know this.
Yeah.
Canadiens used to have a historically long Western road trip right after Christmas. And it went on. I was on those trips for a bunch of years, and it made a difference. In fact, I was talking to the Canadiens' great trainer this morning, Gaetan Lefebvre. And we were talking about those trips that we used to take together and the great dinners that the team would sponsor when we'd be in Vancouver or Edmonton or Calgary right around New Year's Eve after a game, and how well they treated the players and the coaches and the broadcasters. It was a phenomenal time. But the team usually did really well out there, Tony. They did during the holidays. And you know what? We're seeing it again. And quite frankly, Tony, to be fair to this team, they should have won their first 4 games on the road. They should have won that game in Columbus. You know it and I know it. That team played pretty darn well in Columbus. Columbus just took it up another step. That being said, I really trust this team. I love the adjustments that have been made, whether it's Hudson on the first power play, moving Slavkovsky up to play with Suzuki and Caulfield, Line 8 coming back into the lineup. Can Newhook be better, Tony? Yes, he can. Can Doc still be better? Yes, he can. But Jake Evans and Emil Heineman and Joel Armia, they've gone to another level. But the biggest one, Tony, right now that I think has solidified this group, and I know people at home are probably going, come on, are you kidding me? Alex Carrier coming over from Nashville totally changed the depth quotient of this defense.
I was just looking at his minutes, Pierre, because before you even said it, I got my notes here, and one of them says Carrier and Gouli. They were on the ice in the last minute and a half of the game. That's the big trust factor right there. When Marty St. Louis says, you know what, we're holding on to a 1-goal lead, you take a look and you see Carrier and Gouli on the ice, as well as Nick Suzuki, Jake Evans, and Joel Armia. You know that those are the men of confidence of that coach and that coaching staff. He's the guys that he trusts the most to close out that game. And Carrier, he plays mistake-free hockey, Pierre. 23 minutes and 8 seconds. He just, I get it. Nashville probably had to shed a couple of $1 million, man. I don't understand how they made that trade. I don't get it.
Yeah, Tony, I think I told you this when they got him. I was really bullish on the player because I actually was part of a group that wanted to acquire him in Ottawa. We just couldn't get enough wiggle room with money and everything else to make it work. But he's a player that I've been watching for a very long time. I'm a huge fan of the player. I've heard nothing but great things about him as a person. I've never met him personally. But I can tell you that athletically he can play, and he's helping that team. And he and Caden Gouli, moving Gouli over to the left side, Tony, I think you would agree, makes him a whole lot better. Tony, he can play on the right side, but he's better on the left. So, Pierre, there's so many things that have happened to this team ever since Samuel Montembeault was named to Team Canada at the Four Nations tourney. You can see that he's amped it up a notch. Patrick Laine joins this team the second game in December, and obviously he gives them a weapon
on the power play, an extra weapon on the power play. In the last 3 games, Kirby Dach has played better. At least he's produced offensively. He was also on the ice for 2 goals against today, but he produced offensively. Carrier gives them stability and gives them a player they can rely on every single game to play 23, 24 minutes a game. There's other things. Jake Evans, like you said, his confidence is sky high right now. Armia and Heineman have taken their game to another level. The fourth line is really giving them a shot in the arm. Out of all the turning points, would you say the biggest turning point is the acquisition of Carrier?
I do. I really do. And, I talk with Scotty Bowman a lot, and one of the things you're talking about, and I said it one night that you were picking your son up, I think, at the airport. I said the Canadiens are about to take their game to another level. And one of the reasons why I felt that way is because of the Goulet-Carrier tandem. Because what it does is it creates a proper slotting. Hudson and Matheson are good together, but the guy that's improved the most of all the guys so far from the start of the year is Arbor Jackeye. So Arbor knows his role, and he's thriving in his role right now. Yes, he had a misread on the first Vegas goal. I get it. Stuff happens. And not everybody's going to be foolproof. But he made one little mistake. He got caught flat-footed. He got beat. It happens. But you look at his game with David Savard, those guys understand their role. And they're not playing gigantic, monstrous minutes. They're playing enough minutes to make themselves useful, and their size is always a factor. So I'm just thrilled to watch this development with this team. We talked about it at the start of the year, you and I. Patience is important with a rebuild. The patience is starting to be rewarded.
Pierre, you know what? At the beginning of the season, the month of October, the Canadiens were blown out of the building. They were blown out 5 times. Blown out once in November, blown out once in December. So we obviously saw the improvement. In the month of October, the Canadiens, defensively speaking, defensive zone coverage, they looked like they had no idea whether they were coming or going. They looked like they were very, very much confused with the system. You know what? Marty St. Louis stood up and said, we got to work harder, and we got to make better decisions with the puck, and we got to be smarter. And no, the system is not complicated. It's a system that other teams use, and you know what? It's going to come. It's going to come. It's going to come. And he said to those who were criticizing, yours truly included, mind you, I thought I had every reason to criticize at the time. He said, you know what? I've always responded well to criticism, and it fuels me. To see Marty fist pumping, the reaction after the game, and Marty deserves a lot of credit because there's a lot of things that he did here in the last 3 or 4 games. The awareness of having 2 centermen on the ice all the time if one gets kicked out of the circle, the awareness of having the right players on the ice at the right time, trying to get the matchups as much as possible, even when they don't have the last line change on the road, putting his defensemen in better positions, motivating the guys so that, look, Kirby Dach has played better hockey, and if Tony Marinaro was the coach, he probably would have been on the lineup to be benched for a game or 2 or whatever. But it's just Marty's pushed a lot of right buttons. Like, for example, I'll give you another one. When they started Dobesh on Saturday in Florida, I said, okay, well, the number 2 goalie has to play one of the 2 games, or he's got to play one of the 3 because they're going to play 3 games in 3.5 days. But I figured he'd get the one on the second day, and Montembeault would get the one on the Saturday and get the one on the Tuesday. As it turns out, they won all 3 games. Dobesh was great on Saturday. He got the shutout. Montembeault was great the last 2 games. He's pushed all the right buttons lately, Pierre. Deserves a lot of credit.
100%. I'm so proud of you for saying that because it's true. It's true, and it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. And there were not just you. There are a lot of people that misread this situation. They did. But again, part of it is the passion that people have in Montreal for this team. There's nothing wrong with that. It's important to have passion. That's what fuels being a Canadiens fan, the passion you have to want to see this team be great again. And I think they're on their way. Now, it's not going to be
hold
perfect.
on. I got to ask you a question, though. I got to ask you a question, though.
Ask me.
When I said they didn't look like they were coming or going in the month of October or in those 7 blowouts, was I wrong? I mean, the players off the record said that they were confused with the system.
They were. Go ahead.
Continue. So that's all I'm saying.
No, and you're not wrong for your criticism, but here's what I would say. There had to be a couple minor tweaks, and you can go listen to the tapes that we had. I said until they start defending better in the neutral zone, I don't care what they teach with their end zone coverage because it's too big a gap. They had to have better gap control. Guys had to understand the neutral zone better than they had to understand their own zone. Once they understood their own neutral zone, they would understand their own zone better. And you could see they started to make that. It's not because I said it. It's just what you would know as a coach. And so they started doing that. And then they started defending harder from the hash marks down to the icing line. And all of a sudden, they're not giving up nearly as many open opportunities with the high cycle, which is something that kills a lot of teams in the league today. So I give the coaching staff a lot of credit. One of the biggest things they did, besides Carrier, which is management did that. Kent did that. Jeff did that, and the pro scouts did that. That's on the pro scouting staff and the management team. But one of the smartest things they did, and it's given this team a huge amount of confidence, is put Lane Hudson on the first power play, Tony. I'm sorry. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
That's a fact. That is definitely a fact. And one of the things I really like, and here's another button that they pushed, which is a really, really good one. Josh Anderson had an incredibly terrible and disappointing season last year. Yep. He came into the season probably down on himself with something to prove for sure, but probably didn't know if he had the confidence to actually prove it. They gave him a sense of importance when they put him on that penalty kill, Pierre. And I think it gave him a lot of confidence, and he's found a niche for himself on this team. It's probably not in that role that he had in Columbus 5 years ago, but he's found a sense of importance to this team. And Josh Anderson hasn't had too many bad games, Pierre.
Oh, I agree. You know, part of it too, and I was talking to our good friend Chris Nyland the other day. I was on his show, and you talked about talking to him at dinner the other day and some of the things that he's seen. Josh is better because he's playing physical. He's playing fast. He's been in a couple big tussles. You know, think about the fight in New York against Jacob Trouba.
Yes.
Think about the fight in Washington against Tommy Wilson.
Correct.
He did a number on both those guys. The only thing I haven't liked about his game the whole year, when they were playing Pittsburgh and he high-sticked Owen Pickering, that was the only thing I can say where I would have him in my room and say, you can't play like that. If you want me to trust you, you can't do that because everything else you're doing is perfect. You're playing the way you need to play.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
His lack of execution. Tonight, he created two real good scoring chances for himself. He didn't finish. And if he can finish one of those two, then he's bringing something else to the table.
And I think the one you're probably alluding to the most is a backhand chance that he gets on the pass from Lane Hudson. I completely agree. So I'm sitting here. I'm at my brother's place right now, and we're watching the game together. And I said, Lane, don't – and as it's going down 2-on-1, you know, you're kind of – don't pass it. It's Josh Anderson. He's going to be on his backhand. Shoot the freaking puck.
Yeah.
Just shoot it.
Lane's working on his shot, by the way.
I just understood where his skill level is right now.
Yeah. Lane is working on his shot. He spends a lot of time on the ice before practice, before others, working on his shot. He's not the only one, but Lane has been working on his shot. I thought once again, you know what? Lane Hudson wasn't overly flashy today. He didn't have to be. But once again, they went up against a big team. They went up against a strong team. It was 3 games in 3.5 days to travel the time zone. Wow, that's an impressive win. You know, Pierre, they say that goals are scored off of A, mistakes, and or B, real good plays. Every mistake tonight, you know, you paid cash. You take a look at. So let's talk about the game and how Vegas gets on the board. Kirby Dach, and I've seen this before, very unfortunately. So all his troubles are not a thing of the past because there's still some plays defensively where he turns over the puck in the offensive zone. It's picked up by Kolashar, who finds Hurdle, who goes around Jack-Eye, and he feeds White Cloud, who I think it was Newhook was trying to.
It was Newhook. It was Newhook.
And White Cloud is left unattended, and he scores that goal. That's a turnover. It's still 200 feet at the other end of the ice, but Kirby Dach's got to make better decisions than that.
So that's what they call in the business a teachable moment. So that's a video moment. So I don't know if they're going to stay in Vegas tonight and fly to Chicago tomorrow. I don't know maybe it's a reward for the players and they do stay over. I don't know what their travel plans are.
Yeah.
But that's a teachable moment. So what will happen? I guarantee you this will happen. And it probably won't be in front of the other players. It'll probably be either Marty or Trevor Letowski, just one-on-one with him. And they'll say, okay, you've had a really good game, but this is what you can't do. That was a blind spinning backhand pass in the offensive zone, 180 feet away from his own zone. You can't do that. If you do that in a playoff game, you may never see the ice again as a player.
Vinny Donfus wasn't happy with him after the period either, watching the game on RDS. Pietrangelo late in the period number 1 dumps it in. It's picked up by Patrick Laine, who is the first forward back. He's kind of playing the center role at that point. He's hit by Pearson, and it goes off a skate, and it goes to Howden. It's kind of like poked away by Carrier, and it makes its way back to Noah Hannafin, who's left unattended. And Vinny was showing that Kirby Dach, once Patrick Laine picks up the puck, or once he gets bumped off the puck, Kirby Dach goes to the same side of the boards where he's at. He's basically hasn't picked up anyone in the defensive zone. And Hannafin, who ends up picking up the puck, who scores the goal, Kirby Dach has to be on him because he's got to pick up the defenseman at that point. So, Pierre, it's better offensively with 3 goals in the last 3 games. There's no doubt. I thought he played his best game of the season Saturday afternoon with his 2 good games.
I agree with that. I agree.
But defensively, if the first goal was a teachable moment, the second goal is what?
A very teachable moment.
Okay.
This is where you probably are a little harder on him as a coach. And you say, okay, you've played center in your career, you've played wing in your career. So no more excuses. You know Patrick's the first guy back, so that's his responsibility. So he's got down low. Then the strong side winger's got to lock his area. You're the weak side winger. You can't. There's no possible way that you can be over on the boards and your defenseman beats you to the net. That can't happen. That's just not paying attention.
What do you say to Patrick Laine, who has the puck on his stick in the defensive zone and gets knocked off by Pearson, who hits him?
You got to play big, and you got to eat the puck there, or you got to reverse the puck away from traffic. So he's standing in the right corner. That puck's got to end up on the other side of the ice. But all that being said, look, mistakes happen. It's a fast game played on a slippery surface by big people that are angry. So sometimes mistakes happen. That was a mistake. But defensively, building off the turnover, that can't happen. Where if you're a winger, the easiest job in the rink, by the way, and you can ask Vinny Donfuss this.
Yeah.
He played center and wing. The easiest job in the rink, weak side coverage on a defenseman. It's the easiest job in the game. And if you don't do it, it's because you're not paying attention. And that's what I would say as a coach to Kirby.
For those who are watching us right now and are pretty excited with the Canadiens' last 3 wins in the last 3 games in Florida and Tampa and earlier today in Vegas, I'll tell you what the playoff picture looks like. Man, when was the last time we talked about a playoff picture? A couple of years ago, Marty St. Louis said the Canadiens didn't even have the standings in the locker room, Pierre. Well, they do this year. So Toronto, Florida, and Boston have the 3 top spots in the Atlantic. And, of course, Washington, New Jersey, and Carolina have the 3 top spots in the Metropolitan. Boston holds on to the 3rd spot in the Atlantic as 44 points. Now we get down to the wild card teams. Tampa has 42 points. Mind you, they have 3 games in hand on the Canadiens and 5 points more. Just goes to show you how big that win versus Tampa was, because if Tampa would have won that one, they probably would have been off to the races. Ottawa holds the 2nd and final wild card spot. They're 3 points up on the Montreal Canadiens with a game in hand. 3 points. Once again, there are 3 games left between the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators between now and the end of the year. 1 in February, 1 in March, 1 in April. February and April are in Ottawa. The game in March is in Montreal. Having said that, it's not only Ottawa that is ahead of the Canadiens in the wild card spot, of course, because right behind Ottawa, there is Pittsburgh. But the Canadiens, for the time being, are ahead of Columbus, Philadelphia, the Islanders, the Rangers, Detroit, and Buffalo. Pierre, I believe 3 weeks ago, the Canadiens were last in the conference.
Oh, yeah.
3 weeks later, they're 3 points behind the 2nd wild card spot.
One of the things that really turned it for this team, the home and home with Detroit. The home and home with Detroit, they had to do something, and that basically helped lead to the firing of the coach in Detroit.
Yeah.
It really did. It really did. So we'll see how that, with Todd McClellan going in there, replacing Coach Lalonde, we'll see how that works out. But that was a big part of it. Montreal's back-to-back wins with Detroit really changed the tempo of this for this team. It really did. And I'm
glad you said that, Pierre, because I said here on the podcast, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, it's up to people to decide, but I said I thought that first game in Detroit could set the tone for the rest of the month of December, because if they lose that one, maybe they come back to Montreal, they're down on themselves, maybe they lose that one. If they win that one, it's one win, it cancels itself out. But I thought even though they were going to be back in Montreal to play, I said this could set the tone. Mind you, I don't know if the players got together. I don't know what happened after that Columbus game. I don't know if they talked. I don't know what happened on the plane, but they've come back a different team. And once again, they should have won that game in Columbus. They didn't. But Pierre, the last 3 games, once again, 12 goals, 4 against. It's coming along here.
The Florida game blew me away. I watched it from top to bottom, and that's a real good team. Obviously, the defending Stanley Cup champs. Look, they're in a little bit of a lull too. They did beat the Rangers. I watched their game with the Rangers last night. But the truth of the matter is, when you're really watching, breaking it down, Montreal is doing a lot of things right, and it may not be enough. It may not be enough this year. But again, it goes back to something you've talked about. I've tried to be there for you because I believe in what you're saying. This is a team heading in the right direction. And Tony, it's just starting. There are a lot of guys coming.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm mad about it with the team, they lost 2 games in Laval this weekend to Syracuse. The only thing I'm mad about.
Yeah, I hear you.
Everything else is good. Everything else is good.
Speaking of the games on the road, they will continue for the Canadiens, who will be off for a couple of days here, but they're going to be in Chicago on Friday night, and they're going to be in Colorado on Saturday night. So once again, it'll be 2 games and 2 nights, and I would imagine, Pierre, we'll see Jakub Dobesh Friday night in Chicago and Samuel Montembeault Saturday night in Colorado. What do you think?
I don't know how they'll play that. It's an interesting one. I think a lot of it will come down to how they'll probably ask Sammy, how do you feel? And he'll probably say, I feel great. But also, there's one little caveat to this thing, having gone through it a lot in my career. Playing in Chicago, you're playing at sea level. You play in Colorado, you're playing at altitude. So there's a different deal there, too, just so everybody – and I'm not making excuses for anybody, but you have to ask Sam that, who's been through it, and you got to check numbers. And I know people say that's a little too scientific. No, trust me, it matters.
I was kind of thinking the same thing, Pierre. We're starting to think the same, which is dangerous, I think. So we'll see what happens for the rest of this podcast. And then the Canadiens will come back to host the Vancouver Canucks on Monday, January 6th. You can imagine that when they're going to come back, man, they're going to get an applause. They haven't played their game in Chicago or Colorado yet, but it looks like they've stabilized their game, Pierre. And I think you're so right when you say, look, Carrier stabilizing the defense, Gouli on the left side, taking away some power play minutes from Matheson, giving them on the first wave to Lane Hudson, Armia and Heineman giving them a real shot in the arm on the 4th line. The penalty kill playing pretty well. So look, it's good. It's good.
It's all good. One other thing for the fans out there.
Yeah.
Usually teams that come out of the Winter Classic, and Chicago's obviously playing in that right now against St. Louis, it takes a little while to reset coming out of that because you're not practicing inside, you're practicing outside. You're playing outside, your body gets a little nicked up because the ice is a little different. The whole thing, the winds, you get out of rhythm. It's a cool thing to participate in, but I can tell you, usually after the Winter Classic, there's probably a 7 to 10 day thing where you're going like this, Tony. And so I think for Montreal, you jump them Friday night and you put the boots to them early, and you're going to have a easier time winning that game and getting to Colorado with a refreshed lineup to play on Saturday night.
We will be able to take your questions, so send them here. And I'm going to ask Agnello and Sammy to send them over. If you have questions for Pierre McGuire, this is the McGuire Report. Are the Montreal Canadiens going to make the playoffs? Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200. If your first bet loses, scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Also, we're going to open up the phone lines to you on this very special time on this New Year's Eve Tuesday at 1-888-585-SICK. It's a toll-free number. Once again, it's 1-888-585-7425. If you get a line, boom, you jump on it. We'll patch you right through right away, and you ask your question to Pierre McGuire. Sammy and Agnello, are we taking a call first or are we taking a question? You let me know, and you bring up either. Here we go. Hello, gentlemen. Happy New Year's. Thank you to the SICK team. If you could sign Evans, what do you think is the right number term, or do you think he's not part of the 5-year plan? This comes from Vincent Joyal. Pierre, the same question came up yesterday when Eric Engels joined me. Give me your number, Pierre.
I'd go anywhere from $2.75 to $4 million a year. And I would prefer to give him less money longer term. So I prefer to go 4 to 5 years, but on a term that's digestible. I don't think he can replicate all these numbers offensively, but face-off wise, penalty kill wise, and shutdown wise, I think he can do that for a long time.
Pierre, we've talked about Owen Beck, and I know that you're very high on Owen Beck. You've had a chance to see him play several games with the Laval Rocket, and you believe he definitely is a National Hockey League player going forward in the not-so-distant future. One of the things we talked about yesterday is if Owen Beck is brought in to replace a Jake Evans, if Jake Evans walks or is traded, for example, how long can it take Owen Beck to be able to get his game to the level that Jake Evans has it at right now? Because if it takes 3 or 4 years, well, then maybe you're better off signing Jake Evans for 3 or 4 years.
Well, I would tell you right now, I don't have him replacing Jake Evans. I have him replacing Christian Dvorak, number one. Number two, I think he's a better pure offensive player than Jake Evans. I don't think he's as strong physically or as good defensively as Jake Evans. So there's a give and take on both sides. But I think that Owen will play in the league, just like I thought when Jake was drafted in the 7th round, and I watched him and did his games at Notre Dame. I used to tell our good friend Mitchell Melnick a lot, he's going to play in the league, even though he's a 7th rounder. And I think that the same will happen with Owen Beck. But I would not be afraid to give Jake Evans a 4 to 5 year deal. It just has to be on my dollar value. Because I don't think those numbers are going to stay the same offensively.
Interesting analysis and opinion there. Owen Beck will not replace Jake Evans. Owen Beck will replace Christian Dvorak. That's coming from Pierre McGuire. Let's go to Gabriel on line 1. Gabriel, thanks for calling our Habs post-game show right here on the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro. He's Pierre McGuire. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Pierre.
Hi, Gabriel.
Hey, hi, Pierre. So excited about this last win here. I was in Montreal for the win of the Montreal Canadiens against Detroit on December 21st. It was a really exciting game. This is personally the most exciting I've been about watching this team probably in the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. I think everything that you see on the ice is extremely encouraging right now. I wanted to know, Pierre, what the most important things the Canadiens have to be careful about moving forward if they really want to have a shot at making the playoffs this year?
I think getting overhyped. So you can't get, I call it fat, drunken, stupid syndrome. You have to keep it on the rails. You got to understand that every game is like a game 7. That's a hard way to play, but they're not deep enough yet, Gabriel, to say, yeah, we can just show up any night we want in any rink we want and beat somebody. They got to show up like they did in Florida in particular, like they did in Tampa, like they did in Detroit on the Friday night where I thought they played fantastically well. So, yeah, no, it's not easy, but I think that they're positioned that as long as they don't let their guard down, they can stay relevant right to the end of the season, and that's an important part of their development.
Gentlemen, Marty St. Louis at the end of the game, they're learning what they're capable of, but it's not only what you're capable of, it's what you're willing to do. They're willing to sacrifice some of their individual stuff for the bigger cause. You see it, the bench is so dialed in. Pierre, elaborate on, and I think I know what he's getting to, but they're willing to sacrifice some of their individual stuff for the bigger costs.
Yeah, points don't matter. It's shot blocking. It's making sure you win battles to support your sentiment on faceoffs. It's sacrificing being the second hard man on the forecheck, knowing that you're at the end of a game with 3 minutes to go and you got to defend a 1-goal lead. Rather than be aggressive, you get back, you defend, you insulate your defense. I'll give you another example.
It's no leaving the defensive zone until the puck is out of the zone.
Don't leave the defensive zone early. But I'll give you an example. Suzuki did a great job, and he'll get no fanfare at all. At the end of the game, the puck's in the left corner for Montreal in the offensive zone, the right corner for Vegas. He's got it on his stick. He could try to go for the blind pass, put it out front, hope for an empty net goal, and get an assist. No, he doesn't do that. He keeps it down there. He eats it. He probably takes 4 to 7 seconds off the clock. Those things are what Marty's talking about. But remember what I told you after Cole Caulfield got his 100th goal tonight? that beautiful play by Slavkovsky in the boards, a great play by Suzuki to get it to him. And I said, did you see the reaction on the bench? Did you see the reaction from his teammates? That's what the coach is talking about. There's a feeling amongst these guys now that they really truly are a band of brothers. They've been through the worst parts of the season. They've been kicked in the mouth a million times. Now they're starting to enjoy the other side of it, which is really fun.
You know, I'm taking a look at a stat card here, courtesy of Dom Lasician of The Athletic, and the data comes from Nat Stat Trick. Lane Hudson, his analytics today in terms of team offense, individual offense, team defense above average, individual defense. His analytics, Pierre, so once again, we talked about it, wasn't overly flashy today, but his analytics were just, it blew the whole game open. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, the eye test matters a lot with a player like that, and I think that's what Marty's talking about too. You know, Carrier is a great example, Tony.
Yeah.
Look at what he does. It's nothing flashy. It's just make plays, make solid, reliable plays. The coach trusts him. How many games has he been here? 5 games now, Tony? The coach trusts him after 5 games. He's playing him in all the big moments. I think back to that win in Detroit. At the end of the game in Detroit, Alex Carrier was on the ice. That was his first game as a member of the Montreal Canadiens.
Without a practice.
That's what I'm saying. So they trust him. And I know people don't care about it because nobody knows who the pro scouts are. This is such a huge accomplishment by the Canadiens pro scout. And this is not a knock on Justin Barron, not a knock on him at all. You can't compare the two players, Tony. Justin Barron's not playing at the end of a game.
Yeah. I got something for you when you talk about the pro scouts as well. But can it also be Alex Carrier joined Cortex Management in September, which was October, November, December, January, February, about 4 to 5 months before Kent Hughes became the general manager of the Canadiens, right? Kent Hughes probably had nothing to do with that signing of Alex Carrier because, of course, he was taking care of his sector in Boston, in and around. And Alex Carrier joined, and his agent is Phil Lecavalier, Vinny Lecavalier's brother. Can it also be Phil saying to Vinny, who's a consultant to Kent, you got to look at this guy. I mean, there's word that, Nashville might be shopping him. He's my client. He's really good. He's exactly what you guys need. And then Vinny goes to Kent, or Phil actually picks up the phone and calls Kent himself. They worked with each other, right? Yeah. I mean, Kent was a partner in the agency.
That's a perfectly feasible argument that you're making. But I can tell you this: I don't think there's any team in the league that doesn't talk to their scouting staff before they make an acquisition. And if they do, a lot of times they're going to make a flawed decision if they don't talk to their scouts. Those guys work their tails off. They're on the road a lot, and there are a lot of sneaky players in the league, Tony, that if you see them once, they might look really good, and then you don't see them 4 or 5 times around. They're like, whoa, what happened to this guy when you get him?
Yeah.
So this is a player you needed to watch a lot. So, yes, I think that your point is well taken, but I also think the pro scouts deserve some credit for this one. I really do.
Let's go back to the phone lines. We got Ali. Ali, are you there?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad. First and foremost, Happy New Year's to you both and your families.
Thank you very much.
I hope you guys have a great time. Tony and Pierre, I just had a quick question about Kirby Dach. Kirby has looked great in the past 3 games, and only time will tell how he will look at the end of the season. But moving forward to next season, with Kirby's history with injuries, do you both envision a scenario where we can go after a 2C in the offseason and bump Kirby down to the 3-hole?
I don't know why that can't happen. I could see something like that happen, but a lot of it will come down to, I think, where they are when the trade deadline comes up, Ali, and if they've got a legitimate chance to be in it, they might be super aggressive at the deadline, or they might just say, you know what, we're going to keep our powder dry and we'll wait till the off season. So we still have a long way to go till we get to the trade deadline. But I think there'll be a lot of analysis about where Kirby is, and the trainers will be contacted, the doctors will be contacted, and his play will speak a lot to upper management, I believe.
Ali, I believe that if Kirby Dach plays the next 45 games the way he played the last 3, Kirby Dach, they're going to give him an opportunity to show what he can do next year for one full season. And they'll say, you know what? He had one full season of recovery after his ACL, MCL. And then they're going to say, you know what? He's going to have Liney from the start of the season. They'll probably give him Demidov, or Demidov will go on the top line. And, he'll probably get Slavkovsky, whatever. It all depends on the rest of the season. I really believe that. If it's the last 3 games, he'll be given the opportunity. If it's like the first 30 games of the season, at that point, there's a decision to be made. Thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ali.
Where are we going here? Chris, welcome to our Habs post-game edition. I'm Marinaro. He's McGuire. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. I just want to give a quick shout-out to you, Tony. Since you've been on YouTube, I'm in Windsor, Ontario, live right across from Detroit, and don't get this much coverage for the Habs like you do. So I just want to say thank you so much, Pierre.
Well, it's me that thanks you, because I've said something ever since I started in the media, and I'll continue to say it 22 plus years later. Without the listeners and the viewers, we're not anything.
For sure. Right? And great thing too is my kids got me 2 tickets for January 23rd over at Little Caesars, and I'll be bringing my grandson. So I'm ready.
That's cool.
Anyway, Pierre, your thoughts on Jakub Dobej. I know this is early. I thought he had an amazing, stellar, position-wise, everything against the Panthers there. I just want your thoughts going forward.
Chris, I agree with you. I talked to Chris Nyland about this on Sunday morning, and I completely agree with your synopsis on how he played in Florida. He read the play well. His rebound control was good. He wasn't guessing on shots. He wasn't overmatched in any situation. I thought he stood up and made himself look big. That's not an easy place to play for your first ever NHL game against the defending Stanley Cup champs. So I was really comfortable watching him play, and I think his teammates were very comfortable playing in front of him, which is a heck of a sign of respect for him, especially when you consider it's his first time. To be fair, I watched him play a lot at Ohio State. I've watched him play in the American Hockey League, and I'm not surprised at what he did. Now the big thing for him is just to be consistent.
Pierre, what I watched the American Hockey League from Dobej late last season, I had a chance to watch him a couple of times live, as did you. He looked like a goaltender who had a lot more confidence than Caden Primo. He looked a lot more sure of himself. He looked a lot bigger in his net than Primo. I thought he had a better training camp than Primo, and I think that he didn't start the season here because in training camp, I think they feared that Primo was going to get picked up if they were going to put him on waivers. I think one game doesn't make a season, but if he can continue to be sure of himself and be big in his net, he's going to push Montembeault to be better, because Montembeault wasn't being pushed by Primo this season, Pierre.
Agreed. That's a great point. I agree with that 100%. I do.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Let's back to the phone lines at 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7429. Let's go to Agnello and Sammy. Where are we going exactly? Let's go to Jim. Hello, Jim. Jimmy there.
Yeah.
Jim, you're on the line with Pierre McGuire. Go ahead.
How you doing, Tony?
Good. How are you?
All the best to your family.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. To you and yours as well.
Appreciate that. Pierre, same to you and yours as well.
Thanks, Jim.
They're actually all over at my house right now, and they started to party it up already because I can hear them from upstairs, but good for them.
Awesome. That sounds great. Pierre, I want to make a statement, and then I was wondering if you can sort of give me your thoughts. I want to talk about goaltending in the NHL. And what happened to the days, when goaltenders back in the day, like Brewed, Hasek, all these guys, Patrick Roy, would play full 70 or 75 games a year. They'd get their pay. And now we have goaltenders who are playing 50 games a season, and they're making the same salary. And I'm thinking, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me that a goaltender, a starting goaltender, would play 50 or 55 games a year and make 8 or 10 million. I'm thinking, that money could be used, to create more salary cap. I'm wondering, is that something that's even discussed in management in the NHL and in the administration? Is that something that you agree with? Because I personally, I see goaltenders playing in the playoffs, and they're playing. I mean, if you're going to play all the way to the end of the Stanley Cup Finals, you're going to play, and let's say potentially 7-game series, you're playing 28 straight games. So how are they able to do it during the playoffs, back to back, coming and starting, playing well, and somehow during the regular season they fall apart? I don't get it.
Well, first of all, time zone travel matters a lot during the course of an NHL season. 3 games in 4 nights kicks in a lot. Tony talked about 3 games in almost 3.5 days with time zone travel for this team. The way offenses.
I'm sorry. So how do the guys, like, you can't expect me to believe that they're expending more energy than the guys are on the ice, man. I mean, like.
Well, no, I was just going to get.
How are the guys on the ice doing it and the goaltenders can't?
So here's what I'd like to share with you, which is where I was going, Jim. So the way offense is created today is a lot different from when Marty played or Dominik Hasek played. This down-low cycle game is really apparent. The crease crashing is very apparent. Guys are a ton bigger, so you got to see around. There's a lot more side-to-side movement. The game's changed a lot in terms of how offense is manufactured. Guys shoot the puck a lot harder now than what they used to. Back in the day when Marty played, maybe you had 2 or 3 guys that could get over 90 miles an hour because the sticks were different. Now you got almost 7 or 8 or 9, maybe 10 guys that can blast it between 92 and 96. So there's a lot of things different. There's a lot of things. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I know one thing. You need to have your goalie ready to play in the playoffs. The days of Marty Brodeur, 60-plus starts, 15 years in a row, those games are gone. That's not happening anymore because managers and coaches know how important it is to have your goalie invigorated and fresh for the start of the playoffs.
Mind you, Marty played in front of a system. Marty was great. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best goaltenders of all time. We'll never take anything away from him. He did play in front of a system that preserved him quite a bit. There were many nights where he got actually faced less than 20 shots.
And the other part, too, is the red line's been out, and so that's a big part of it, too. Odd man rushes are more apparent. Breakaways are more apparent. And one more thing. We have overtime now, and we also have a shootout now. And because of the parity in the league, the goalie matters a ton. They matter a ton for those extra points.
Pierre, before we get to Danny, and we're going to take a few questions as well. We talked about how Vegas scored their goals. We didn't talk about how Montreal did. I know you elaborated on the Caulfield goal, but it was Shea Theodore who tries to clear the zone, and it's picked off by Slafkovsky on the wall, on the boards, and he finds Nick Suzuki in the slot. Now, Nick Suzuki, I think he's got like 4 yellow jerseys around him, Pierre. That pass that he made to Cole Caulfield, I'm not going to tell you Suzuki's Gretzky because there's only one Gretzky, but that was special. That was special to find them, but it's also 2 guys that know each other where they are on the ice at all times, right? Hull and Oates had that. Right? Maybe not at the same level here. I get it because Brett Hull used to score 70 plus, but and Adam Oates was one of the best playmakers in the history of hockey. But that was pretty special.
I'm going to agree with you because both of them are right-hand shots like Suzuki and Caulfield too. Yeah. So I'm with you on that one. You're not reaching on that one. That's a true one. I'm thinking Mario Lemieux and Kevin Stevens, back in the heyday. So, one was a righty, one was a lefty. So it was a little bit different. But no, you're right. That was a special play. That's why I brought it up right away. I thought Slafkovsky made a good play. The pass by Suzuki was just magnificent. Liney's been the beneficiary of a lot of Suzuki passes.
Yeah.
And it's almost the same kind of thing. Liney's a right-hand shot playing on the left side. And he gets it right in his wheelhouse from Nick all the time. Nick's a spectacular player.
Pierre, I just love Emil Heineman. He near the end of the period, he gets a skate right in the face, and it looked scary. And he goes to the locker room, obviously. But now the Canadiens are down 2-1 in period number 3, and Vegas tries to clear the puck out of the zone one more time, and David Savard's waiting for it at the blue line, and he just slaps it at the net, and Adin Hill makes the save, and the rebound comes out, and there's Theodore, and there's McNabb, and there's Heineman right in between them. And the hands were so quick, right? His hands were quicker than their hands trying to get the puck out of the zone, and he jams it home. He ties it at 2. And then Josh Anderson, we talked about him before, who blocks a shot and then is able to get the puck to Kirby Dach in the neutral zone, who goes on a 2-on-1 with Patrick Laine, who's looking at Laine, but the defenseman comes across and slides. Kirby Dach's a right-handed shot. He decides to put it to his backhand. He tries to pass it to Laine. His pass actually goes to the net. Adin Hill is thinking he's going to pass the puck too, and the puck ends up going through Adin Hill's pads. Pierre, great for Kirby Dach, He did everything he had to do on that play. Aiden Hill can't give up that goal.
No, it's not a good goal to give up. He knows it too. He knows it too. But, you said something that's really important. Aiden Hill also knows the guy that's coming on the 2-on-1. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good player.
Yeah. So you had the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights on the eye test yesterday. Did you not?
We did. Yeah. We had Coach Cassidy on. He was outstanding.
Yeah, but he's gonna next time. It's the day before a game. I don't think he's coming on with you again here. But look. They had won 6 games in a row, but they blew a 2-0 lead tonight. They could have put this game away. I'm sure he's not going to be a happy guy at the end of this game, even though his team has done really well and best winning percentage in hockey. He's probably gonna think that they gave Montreal the game tonight.
They did. Well, I think Montreal fought their way back into the game, and Sam Montembeault made some amazing saves. So I give Sam a lot of credit too, especially in the second period. I think you would agree. There's one player that didn't play for Vegas, and he's a really important player for them. And we talked to Coach Cassie about that, and it's
Barbashev.
Ivan Barbashev. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And so what the difference is with him, when the puck goes deep, he makes the other team's defense pay. When the puck's at the offensive blue line, he either makes a real good play with it or it's in deep. Ivan Barbashev defensively is so responsible. He was a great junior player in Moncton. He was a Stanley Cup winner in St. Louis. Like, they miss him. And I'm not making excuses for them because Montreal earned this win and battled it in.
Yeah.
But Vegas missed a pretty important part of their
They
group.
did. And he was a monster in the game against the Canadiens back on Saturday, the 23rd of November, where Vegas scored 5 unanswered goals in Montreal against the Canadiens in period number 2. So he was look, he's the kind of player who gives the Montreal, every team, a lot of difficulty. He's big, he's strong, he's talented. By the way, there's another big, strong player that I really like is Marchenko in Columbus. He's good, eh?
Yeah, he's really good. And he can shoot it. He's got a better shot than Barbashev.
Yeah, he's got a great shot.
He's a big kid. He can really shoot the puck, and he's going to be a 35 to 40 goal scorer in the league with consistency. He's a really talented kid.
I love Adrian Kempe too in Los Angeles. Hey, speaking
hard
of
not to like him, especially when you consider he plays with Anze Kopitar. Like, what people don't realize, in the 2005 draft, I was at the World Championships. Kopitar was playing for Slovenia. I sat in the empty rink in Innsbruck, Austria, watching Slovenia practice, and David Conti, who was a legendary scout with the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
David comes up to me and he goes, "You know who the best player is in this whole thing? Forget Crosby. Do you know the best players in the draft besides Crosby?" Everybody knew it was Sid. It's Kopitar. It's that guy right there, and he points him out on the ice. I said, "I saw him playing Skellefteå up in Sweden, and, he played in Södertälje in Sweden, but I saw him playing Skellefteå." I said, he's a good player. I agree with you, David, but second bet?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." And you know what? If you look at that draft, he was the second best player in the draft. He was.
Yeah, you're right. And to think that the Los Angeles Kings, that draft year, they got Kopitar and they got Jonathan Quick. And that draft year is a big reason why the Los Angeles Kings won 2 Stanley Cups. 100%. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, True Doughty going number 2 overall. I mean, that's a big reason why they won the Cup as well in 2012 and 2014. And I think Darryl Sutter was a big reason as well. There's a lot of reasons why they won the Cup, but that draft year was huge for them. Once again, 2005 draft year. Let's go through it. We'll go through the top. We'll go up to the picks of top 11 or top 12. Sidney Crosby went 1 to Pittsburgh. Bobby Ryan
2. Bobby Ryan 2. Jack Johnson 3.
Correct. Benoit Pouliot 4.
4.
Carey Price 5. Gilbert Brulé 6. Jack Skilly 7. Devin Setaguchi to San Jose 8. Brian Lee to Ottawa 9. Luc Bourdon, God bless him and rest his soul, to Vancouver at 10. Anze Kopitar at 11. And Mark Stahl to the New York Rangers at 12. We'll end it there. David Conte was right.
That's what I'm telling you. He told. You remember we were sitting in the empty arena in Innsbruck, and it was just he and I, and we were watching Slovenia practice. He goes, "That guy there is the second best player in the draft, and nobody knows it. Nobody knows it."
Isn't that something? There was a player that went 62nd overall that year who ended up having a pretty nice NHL career and is still having one. Would you remember who that is?
62nd in 2005? No.
Yeah.
No.
Christopher Letang. What a pick, eh?
He was good. He and Luc Bourdon were best friends. The late Luc Bourdon, they played together in World Junior for Canada in 07 in Leksand, Sweden.
Yeah.
They were really, really, really tight. Really tight.
And not a bad pick, Keith Yandel in the 4th round, 105. That's a pretty good pick too. That had a nice NHL career.
Did
yeah. But that Letang pick, that's a fantastic pick. What a fantastic pick that is. Yeah.
Good.
But he was right. Anze Kopitar is look. You're going to have some that are watching right now that are probably going to say, "Well, Carey Price, second plus player in that draft." We're not including goalies, but with all due respect to Carey, even if we do, I think Anze Kopitar had the pretty unbelievable career.
Major awards, All-Stars, Stanley Cups. I mean, he's still going too.
200-foot player, and he's still going.
He's still going.
Yeah.
He's still going.
And maybe Carey would as well, but unfortunately, some of the injuries got the better of him. Okay, we'll take. Do we have any questions? Because I think we're going to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes or so. So why don't we take? Okay, hey Pierre, is Carrier our new Josh Georges?
Well, Josh was a really good shot blocker, and Josh is a great character person. I know Josh extremely well, and I'm a huge fan of his. He doesn't have the offensive upside that Carrier has in terms of moving the puck, but he's similar to Josh George in a lot of ways defensively. Josh just didn't have his offensive ability.
I think Carrier's tougher to play against as well.
Josh was tougher than you think, especially
really,
his penalty kill situation. Josh was really good. Fearless shot blocker, pure character guy.
One more call. We go to Danny. Danny, welcome to the Habs post game right here on the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro, and I'm with Pierre McGuire. Go ahead, Danny.
Hi, how's it going? Happy New Year, guys.
Likewise.
Awesome. And yeah, wish Max a happy New Year's for me as well. But I wanted to talk about the bottom six, and specifically once we started winning, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that every single line has an identity, and specifically with the Heineman, Evans, and Armia, which a couple of them, we have to re-sign. They provided a specific identity that kind of balances the entire team. And I want to lead this into next year. Obviously, two of those players need contracts and will eventually need a contract as well. There's guys like Beck and Xhekaj and Laval that are coming in. But it seems like a line like this with some age and some character has allowed us to kind of move on in this rebuild where we're starting to win and compete and be in the mix. So I'm curious how you think we could balance developing these young players in Laval and bringing them up and providing them with opportunity while also, keeping what's working. And this line's been so incredible. So I think they should keep them, and I want to hear your opinion.
Go ahead, Tony.
I think that keeping them together, if the Canadiens are going to continue to win games, Pierre, I think you're going to want to keep a lot of the guys together. And I think that if the Canadiens are going to be in the mix, I think that you're going to want to keep a lot of guys that probably you would have thought you would have traded before the beginning of the season. I can't see Kent Hughes going out and trading guys at the deadline if the Canadiens are 4 or 5 points out of a playoff spot.
I agree.
I can't. And then you know what? If they miss the playoffs, some people are going to say at the end, well, I can't believe they had an opportunity to trade some of the guys and they didn't. But he owes it to his team to give them the best chance. Some fans are out there and they're thinking rebuild, and they're thinking if the Canadiens lose more than they win and they're going to get a top 5 pick again, it could be better for the long term, whatever. The players don't think like that. The players think differently, and Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon, they're making the players do their thing. And if they do, they're not going to let the players down, and they're not going to let Marty St. Louis down either. They will keep them together.
Yeah, what's really important, Danny, I think, is for Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes to be absolute experts on every player in their organization. By that, I mean who's growing their game, whose game is going backwards, who in Laval has better upside. Does a player in Laval have better upside than the player in Montreal right now? And so you got to look at all these things. So being an expert of your own players matters a lot. Where do they think Demidov is going to be? Where do they see Michael Hayes? How do they evaluate Florian Xhekaj? Where do they see Luke Tuck? What's going to happen with Joshua Roy? There's so many different questions, but that comes down to being an expert of your own organization. So there's a lot to do here, but I'm totally with Tony on this. If they're 3 to 5 points out of a playoff spot at the deadline, they got to do something to make the team better, because I think they're going to have a chance to make it. I do.
But I'm more so even saying that they should even re-sign them.
No, Danny, I would wait. there's no rush to do that, Danny. I wouldn't be in a rush to do that, Tony. I don't know how you feel, but I would not.
Yeah. Next summer, once the season's over, like let's
Yeah,
say,
I mean,
let's say they don't make the playoffs, they're 4 points out, but they had a great run and they're playing good hockey. Then I'm thinking,
But
well,
who specifically? Who specifically, Danny?
Armia, Evans. Obviously, I think Dvorak is the odd man out. Someone needs to go to fill in for
Dvorak will be gone. There's no doubt about it. Look, Yoel Armia's last contract was a 4-year deal at around $3.4 million, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And Pierre, we know that contract was a contract that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon didn't like. You so much as told us that when you were with another organization that player was offered to you. So, but he has been a valuable player down the stretch and playing a role and has come up big on the penalty kill as well. If they're going to bring him back, and I would have never thought they were going to bring him back, but if they're going to bring him back because they say the players in Laval aren't ready, so we might as well keep Armia, you know what? It'd have to be on a 2-year deal, and it'd have to be at a third of what he was making.
He's going to take a discount. He's not going to get a raise.
He's not going to get a raise for sure.
No way.
But how many guys, Pierre, go into unrestricted free agency and want to sign a 1 or a 2-year deal when they're only 31? They're looking at it and saying, this is probably the last contract of my career, right? Now, it doesn't mean someone's going to give them a 4-year deal.
No.
But that's what they're going to want, right?
Absolutely. You want the longest possible deal. That's why I said with Evans, who's 28, I think, right now.
Yeah.
So if I'm him, if they say, you know what, we're going to give you a little less money, but we're going to give you a longer term, I'm seriously thinking about that because you want more term. People don't realize there's other things that kick into this.
Yeah.
Pension. It's a lot of stuff long term that people don't think about. They're just looking at the short-term dollars. You got to think long-term dollars, especially for a depth player that's not making $7 to $10 to $12 million a year. It's a way different deal. And I mean no disrespect, because most of the people listening to us now live in Canada. The Canadian taxation rates are way different than a lot of the places in the United States. So even though these guys are making U.S. coin, they're still paying taxes, and it doesn't get taken out at tax time. It gets taken out at source. It's a way different deal. I'm just telling you.
Storm and Norman on YouTube Live says $1.9 million for Armia. I don't know if that's on a 1-year deal or he wants to give him 1.9 times 2. I would imagine it's not on a long-term deal. Yeah. David Savard, Pierre, once again, they got some time on their hands here, right? They got all of January and they got most of February before they decide, what they're going to do with some of these players.
The most prudent thing to do is you prioritize. Who's the most important guy on your list that you want to get signed? If it was me, I'd say Jake Evans.
Yes, he is.
So so you prioritize from Jake down, and you create almost a level of who's the most important, who do we need to spend the most time recruiting or talking to, and how are we going to formulate that fitting with our cap? How are we going to do that?
David Savard might make it easier for you. He might come up to you and say, you know what, I'm 34 years old and I'd be willing to take this 1 year at a time. If you guys are willing to do it, I'd be willing to do it because I love it here.
I see. That's what I would expect that he would do, but I don't know that. I just know one thing. He's a heck of a teammate. He's a proud guy. He's had an amazing career. He's a Stanley Cup champion, and he chose to come back to Montreal. He chose to come back. He was living in a no-tax state, and he was having a lot of fun playing there.
Yeah. Storm and Norman says it's a 2-year deal that he wants to give Armia, 1.9.2. Pierre, speaking of teammates, you're a great teammate. You're in for every Montreal Canadiens post-game show right here on the Sick Podcast during weeknights, and it's brought to you by Restaurant Vago. I can't thank you enough. I really love what we have going here on the Sick Podcast, especially with you on the post-game editions. Thanks, Pierre.
I'm so grateful, Tony, for being part of it, and to the fans of Montreal, keep having fun with this group. It's just going to get better. It's just going to get better. Happy New Year to everybody. Please stay safe. Tony, I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you very much, Pierre. I'll finish it off with this. 2024, professionally speaking, was really a great year for myself. And it was a great year for the Sick Podcast. On a personal level, it was a difficult year because my son has been living in Spain, and that's not easy. But the last week has been nice because he's been here. Sammy Cavallaro put this up on social media. Sick Media's 2024 accomplishments. 100% revenue growth. 5 new employees hired. 8 new podcasts launched. 11 new podcast hosts. 75% increase on audio platforms. 72% increase in follower growth. Covered the Super Bowl. Covered the 2024 NHL Draft. 20 plus live events. And we launched a new writing division. Looking ahead to 2025, Sammy says he's excited by the endless opportunities and challenges that await. He's excited to continue growing, learning, and achieving even bigger goals. Here's to new horizons, he says, continued success and a year making things happen. The Sick Podcast is about 5 years old. We went full-time with a Montreal Canadiens podcast around September of 2022. So we're about 2.5 years in on that. And we had 1,500 people live watching on the YouTube today on New Year's Eve. Not to mention the Facebook Live, not to mention the Twitter Live. I think if you add all up, the numbers would probably be close to they're over 2,000 for sure. And we're going to have a bunch of people listening to us. You've made this Sick Podcast your Montreal Canadiens podcast of choice and to listen to. Sammy just told me that with the YouTube numbers, the Facebook numbers, and the Twitter numbers, we were over 4,000 people at one point in the last hour or so here. I want to thank you so much because when I made the move to leave English radio, I was betting on myself, and I was betting on Sammy, and I was also betting on all of you that you would come over and you would listen, you would watch, you would engage, and you would support. And once again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, without the listeners and the viewers, I can't do what I love to do. And I really love doing what I love to do. And that means I love you. Thank you. Have a great end to 2024. Have a great 2025. And I wish all of you health because nothing else matters. If you have health, you have everything. Happy New Year.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.